first of all, if you can introduce yourself,
Yeah.
name, age, how you identify.
Yeah. I'm Johanna Monk. I'm 52 years old, and I identify as a member of the human race.
Very good.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Our first question is, when did you find out that the body you were born into wasn't fitting your identity?
Can I answer the question a bit indirectly?
Yeah.
Yeah. I think because questioning your gender identity is quite complex and quite subtle. And in order to bring the point across to people either who are antagonistic toward the idea or people who are open to it but don't really understand where you're coming from, we often use like metaphors or shorthand. So like that you're born in the wrong body, or to me, if you dig a bit deeper, these things don't really cut it. It's a lot more subtle than that. So I would say all my life I felt that there was a incongruence between the body I had and the way people treated me and the way I was categorized and how I felt or how I wanted to feel or how I thought about myself. That there were all kinds of things that didn't quite feel right. And that's always been all my life. And there was a quite long period that I was really happy and comfortable living as a man. I did enjoy that for a period, and it's not something that I look back on and want to erase.
Yeah.
For other people it's a different story. For other people, I know some trans people, they really get to a point like the narrative that they feel represents how their reality is to say that I was a woman from birth and I was assigned the wrong gender, but I've always been a woman. I don't feel that. I have been a man.
Okay.
Yeah. And I enjoyed it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And all the time I was a man, I was also struggling with my gender. But that was just part of who I was. Somebody who had these I would say issues, because that's so a bit negative, but these quirks and these characteristics. That was just part of my psyche, part of who.
And when did you make that step then? What happened that made you do?
I think I just ran out of reasons not to do it.
Okay.
Yeah. And really a beautiful moment was I was having a talk with my partner, and we've been together for 30 years, so she's known about this from the start. But this was just part of who I was, and I was telling her, we need to talk about this because it's been obsessively, compulsively on my mind for a while, and I need to unload my thoughts so it doesn't just go spiraling. And we were just talking, and actually the talk was I was just giving her all of the 25 reasons I had not to do it. And with every one of those reasons, and some of those reasons involved her, of course, because it was obviously something that's really going to impact her life as well as mine if I would do this. I was just giving her all the good reasons I had for not transition. And every one of these reasons, she said, I don't think that's a very good reason. That's why you're not doing it, but what else have you got? And we ran through all of these, and it was just quiet for a while. And we sat on a bench near the river, and we just didn't talk for a while. And then I said, I guess we should try it then. Let's see how it goes.
It's very wonderful to have somebody who supports you.
Oh yeah.
Like that.
Yeah, she is extremely supportive, and usually if you have a partner, usually what they say the best you can wish for is that they come to accept it.
Yeah.
She's way beyond that. She's like embracing it, and she loves it.
So how did you feel like when you were transitioning, closing, like the experience of shopping? Did you feel comfortable to go to the female section or not?
Yeah, I did for a while, but somehow I also embraced the discomfort. That was because the discomfort is also adventurous. It's also, then you're doing something that has value or impact. If it's not scary, if it's just like whatever. that maybe not so interesting. So it was, yeah, I was often feeling very uncomfortable and just not knowing. I mean, there's so many things that can happen.
You're from Rotterdam, or
I'm from Canada.
You're from Canada. Okay.
I've been living in Rotterdam for 25 years.
Okay. Were you already here when you started?
Oh yeah, this is just like this. Is just
So
like
it
this.
happens in Holland.
It's just like 3 years ago that I started this.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. You said that you felt uncomfortable, but at the same time you just face it.
But the same discomfort that I would feel just like going out on the street dressed differently than I used to. Just the fear of being confronted, the same feeling I would get when the first few times I went to the public toilet.
Yeah. How was that?
Scary.
Yeah.
Because you don't know. I know other trans people say, no worries, I just do it. But I felt like, what's going to happen? Somebody can confront me. Somebody can get pissed off. Somebody can. I don't know. But I was really lucky. It went a lot, the social transitioning, what is called in transgender terminology, what is called passing.
Yeah.
That went surprisingly much easier than I anticipated.
So do you feel that there's more here, at least in Holland, that there's more openness towards it? And
well, definitely more than in like 3/4 of the, I think almost every country in the world, definitely coming out in that neighborhood. And even before, like when I was presenting male, people would often notice. I mean, I was noticeable.
Yeah.
And with my wife together,
Yeah.
we were quite like, if you saw us together, like, you remember these people. So I'm thinking like a lot of people remember us. People that we don't know how we look like, remember us, see us on the street. And then suddenly, like one of these two people is another gender. How are people in our neighborhood with all this diversity, this beautiful diversity, but also scary diversity, because there are also in diversity, there's also, really not so nice elements too. That's otherwise it wouldn't be diversity, right? There's only nice people.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking, how is that going to go? And it went like I never had any problem, any incident. So I feel really blessed.
Okay. Our question is if there was
The essence
basically our question is that there was a moment in the day that you were confronted with your body and you felt uncomfortable.
There's a lot of dimensions to that question, so I'm wondering which one to focus on. Again, to get back to what we said at the beginning, so questioning your gender and gender dysphoria and how you feel that you should transition, that's really different for every person. And we tend to generalize this a bit in order to present it to a broader audience. So we say, I'm a man, a woman trapped in a man's body, or these are really simplifications. And not to me, so just to say that every person's story is really different. So gender dysphoria works on different levels. There's an anatomical level, just the feeling of looking at your own body naked in the mirror. And to me what was really strange is that the things that bothered me, they changed depending on which gender I selected in my mind.
Yeah.
Which gender I identified with or I focused on in my mind. So if I would look at myself as a man, there were things about my body that would make me feel uncomfortable and inadequate or ugly.
Mm-hmm.
And if I was focusing or feeling myself as a woman, other dimensions of my body would make me feel uncomfortable. Not the same ones.
Mm-hmm.
So really part of this is a mind frame. And I don't think anyone chooses to be transgender, but we can choose what we do with it. And of course we want to make a choice that makes us happy and helps us to develop and flower and flourish as people, and not one that makes us miserable, but still it is to a large extent a choice, what we do with it, how we express it. But again, that's my story, so I'm not like speaking for the transgender community.
No,
This is just
no,
my
we're-
own. Yeah, the only thing that I feel I can say for the transgender community is really everybody's story is different, and we really need, if you're interested in the topic, you really need to listen to the people's stories and really understand that we're all individuals. And sometimes that's okay. That sometimes that can be necessary to generalizations can be useful sometimes, but we need to remember that they are shortcuts, like intellectual and emotional shortcuts, because you don't always have like an hour to explain all the details, so you need to say it in one sentence, and then you get a sentence like a woman in a man's body.
Yeah, because we were focusing about like, so we have to do with this brand collaboration, and we want to work with this lingerie brand that, what's the name, Hunkemuller?
Okay.
That is very feminine, and it's embrace and empower only a certain type of female.
Yeah.
And we were suggested to collaborate with a known brand so that we could reach a bigger audience. But we don't really embrace what Hunkemuller does in general.
Okay.
So we wanted to choose this kind of provocative, but also kind of to spread awareness and to, push some buttons and say that there's not only one type of shiro, as Hunkemuller puts it, because it's very designed and branded over one type of woman, basically. And we wanted to say, every body is beautiful, every type of body is beautiful. And
the interesting thing is, and I think this is something that a lot of transgender people will say, is that the things that maybe felt interesting to explore before you were transitioning, actually in terms of clothing and presentation, actually a lot of this just accentuates or increases the dysphoria, because it places an emphasis on those parts that you're not so comfortable with. So, for example, something that really looks nice if you have larger breasts is if I put that on and I just know that I'm not feeling it, it's just going to make me feel more dysphoric. So you're also there are limitations on what you're dealing with your body, and you want to make it look nice, and then you find out, okay, certain things don't work so much. But still, try finding a 80 AA bra. See where you can find that in Rotterdam. 80 AA. Where can you buy that?
I don't know where.
Huh?
Nowhere.
Not in Rotterdam. No. You buy it online. There's a very nice website that in Germany that specializes in small cup. Yeah, not just for trans women, but just for all women with small breasts who want to have a nice bra, which you basically can't find anywhere. And there's a web shop where I get this. It's called kleinerkörbchen.de.
Do you think this type of market, this niche brand, are kind of increasing, they're becoming more and more every day, or it's still kind of really in kind of box, or is spreading?
Can I return your question with a question? I'm not aware are there brands that really focus on transgender and gender non-conforming people in terms of
underwear?
Really? Okay.
There's one we found is called. She's from Canada.
Okay.
She makes the garment herself, so you can have a custom made piece.
That sounds expensive.
We saw it was. It's not cheap.
It's not. If it's custom made
it's $60 something dollars.
For what?
For one piece.
For one piece, it depends on what kind of piece it is, because she had from dresses to boxers.
That's okay. That's doable.
Also the tomboys, they were more focused on trans men.
Okay.
And
phase for me, let's say in the earlier phase of the transition, but for a lot of transgender people who don't opt for surgery, it's a lifelong issue that there are certain parts of your anatomy, either for trans men or trans women, that are sticking out, and you want them not to stick out.
Yeah.
And that can be an issue, and it's more of a technical issue than one of style or fashion. But a lot of people, there's like you can find all this on the internet, and there's all these like DIY techniques for strapping your breast or tucking your penis, and a lot of these are like quite, not really nice, not really.
It hurts.
And a lot of the techniques that.
We don't have to go that far. I mean, I do understand the technicalities and the difficulties of transitioning. That you want you have an image of yourself and you want to get close as possible, and you're taking steps, and you know that transitioning takes time.
Yeah.
So you just have to kind of like let it go and embrace. And say, okay, it's gonna come, I guess.
Yeah.
Right?
Exactly.
Yeah. How was that feeling for you to finally embrace, like the body that you were imagining, or you're still kind of far away?
I think it's a combination of doing what you can do and realizing at what point, like, how much is it worth it?
Yeah.
Because it's what my partner calls the Michael Jackson syndrome, which is definitely not where some trans people really go down that rabbit hole of just like endless surgeries, and it doesn't make them happier. Your faith. I mean, there's so much you can do, and I can understand if it makes you happy, then I would say by all means do it. But there's always a danger that it's just going to go on. There's always going to be something, and there are things about my body that I'm not so happy with.
Yeah.
And that I could still like, okay, I could do this, and I think, come on.
Yeah.
I mean, everybody
But even
has,
if people that they haven't transitioned and they have things about their body.
Everybody has something about their body that they don't like. And so, I mean, if there's something really major that you can do with not too much, cutting and pasting, I would say that if you really think it's really going to make you happy, do it. But Jesus, be careful, there's of course.
So, if a big brand would have a gender-neutral section, do you think would help people transitioning, also people that don't feel comfortable with male or female?
I would even go one step further, and I would, I'm thinking too far ahead. I think a lot of gender dysphoria just has to do with the fact that from childhood, that we are just pushed into these gender roles, and it already starts like you paint the baby room pink or blue.
Is the first thing, the first category you learn.
Exactly. Not just that. What's the first thing you say about a person when they're born?
Yeah.
It's a boy. Yeah. It's a girl.
Yeah. True.
And I would actually, if I would have children, I don't have children, but if I would have children, and if I would do that now, I would like not even just tell. I would just like keep that like, no, it's nobody's business.
Yeah.
They can decide when they're old enough what gender they want to be. It's a human being.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of this dysphoria can be alleviated because we grow up just with these ideas. And for me, growing up, a lot of what made me even start to question my gender was just all these stereotypes of manhood that I felt like I could never live up to. I wasn't that kind of man. Yeah. And if I wasn't that kind of man, then I wasn't a real man. And if I wasn't a real man, then no one would love me and I could never be happy. That's how it started for me. Yeah. And if we would just like, I think the best thing in terms of clothing would just to have like no women's section, no men's section, just mix it all up. Yeah. And anybody can wear what they want. And the thing that really often fascinates me, if you see like a debate, if you see the discussions on YouTube, like all the people that are really getting so pissed off and excited about this, like, why do you care? People getting all foaming at the mouth because some people are questioning their gender or being agender. Like, why do you even care? Let people do their thing. And
I don't.
Why?
But I feel like when we talked also with other two trans men, and they had a very good experience when transitioning, and especially like, and also even they're from small, even Raf is from a small city, small village, and where you would think that they will be more conservative, but they're actually not.
A small village in the Netherlands.
In the Netherlands, yes, yes. And I'm from Italy personally, so when I see this, it gives me hope.
Yeah.
Because where I'm from a village.
Okay.
But it's so super conservative, like.
Very Catholic.
Yeah. Yeah. But it's not even being Catholic that, yeah, of course gives like the base of it, but it's really like that division of being a man and being a woman, that it's very like.
Yeah. And very important to people.
Yeah.
That's why the first question you asked me is how do I identify? It's like human. To me, it's not that much of a part of my identity. It's to be, I think I feel more transgender than woman or man.
Yeah.
That's probably a bigger part of my identity because it's something I really chose to do, to express.
Yeah.
And otherwise, there are things more important that are more central for me to my identity than the color of my skin or
for sure.
Or my genitals, or these are expressions, but it's not really who I am. It's what I do and how I express and how I live.
Can relate to that, I think. I feel something like that is in between man or female. I don't recognize myself as one or the other. I just feel like this kind of thing in between, and I'm kind of like, even this experience for me to try to talk to people, the transition, and it just makes me more aware of what I might be.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's quite good. Thank you.
Yes, you're welcome.